You're about to unlock something most men will never figure out in their entire lives. Right now, there's a girl out there, maybe someone you already know, maybe someone you just met, and she's thinking about some guy. She's checking her phone, hoping to see his name. She's replaying their last conversation in her head. She's wondering what he's doing, who he's with, whether he's thinking about her too. And here's the part that's going to sting. It's probably not you, but it's not because you're not good enough. It's not because you're not attractive enough or rich enough or tall enough. It's because you don't understand the psychological mechanism that makes a woman obsess over a man. And once you do, everything changes. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to implant yourself in her mind so deeply that she can't help but think about you, even when she's trying not to.
Let me tell you what's actually happening in her brain when she can't stop thinking about someone. It's not romance. It's not destiny. It's a dopamine loop combined with cognitive dissonance, and it's the same neurological pattern that makes people addicted to slot machines. When she thinks about you and feels uncertain about where she stands, her brain releases a small hit of dopamine mixed with cortisol, the stress hormone. This creates a craving for resolution. She needs to know. She needs to understand. She needs to close the loop. And until she does, you're living rent-free in her head. Most guys destroy this mechanism before it even starts. They do it by being too available, too predictable, too eager to please. Picture this. You meet a girl, you have a great conversation, you get her number. You're excited. So what do? You text her that same night. Hey, it was great meeting you. She responds. You respond immediately. She sends a laughing emoji. You send 3 texts explaining the joke. Within 48 hours, you've told her your entire life story, validated every single thing she said, and made it crystal clear that you're completely available and deeply interested. Congratulations. You just killed any chance of her obsessing over you because you gave her brain exactly what it wanted: certainty, resolution, closure. There's nothing left to wonder about. Here's what you don't realize. The human brain is hardwired to solve puzzles. When something is too easy to understand, we lose interest immediately. When something is slightly out of reach, slightly unclear, slightly mysterious, our brain becomes consumed with figuring it out. Think about the last time you watched a TV series that ended on a cliffhanger. You couldn't stop thinking about it, could you? You were checking online to see when the next episode dropped. You were running theories in your head. That's the same psychological state you want to create in her mind about you. You want to be the cliffhanger she can't stop trying to resolve. So let's talk about what this actually looks like in practice. You meet her. You have a good conversation. You're charming. You're confident. You're present. But here's the critical part. You leave first. You end the interaction while it's still good, before it gets boring, before she's ready for it to end. I've got to run, but this was fun. That's it. No, we should hang out sometime. No, can I get your number? You just leave. And now something interesting happens in her brain. She was enjoying the conversation. She was starting to feel attracted, and then you just left. Her brain doesn't have resolution. It doesn't have certainty. It has a question. Wait, did he not like me? Was I not interesting enough? Is he going to try to see me again? You've created the first spark of obsession. It's not a big flame yet, it's just a question mark. But that question mark is more powerful than any statement you could make, because now she's thinking about you. She's replaying the conversation. She's analyzing your body language, your tone, what you said, what you didn't say. She's trying to figure you out. And the more she tries to figure you out, the more space you occupy in her mind. This is the foundation. This is where it starts. But most men never even get here because they're terrified of leaving without sealing the deal. They think they need to lock in the next meeting, get the number, establish clear interest. They don't realize that by doing so, they're killing the very thing that would make her chase them.
Now, let's go deeper into what happens after that first interaction. But before we do, like this video and tell me where you are watching from. Let's say you do get her number. Maybe she offers it. Maybe you run into her again and the timing is right. Here's where 99% of men completely sabotage themselves. They text too much. They text too consistently. They text with too much enthusiasm. Every message is packed with eagerness. Good morning, hope you have an amazing day. Followed by, how's your day going? Followed by, just saw this funny thing and thought of you.
What you think you're doing is showing interest and building connection. What you're actually doing is training her brain that you're always available, always thinking about her, always waiting for her response. You become predictable. You become expected. You become boring. Here's the truth that's going to sound harsh, but you need to hear it. People obsess over what they can't have, not what they already have. When you're constantly available, constantly responsive, constantly initiating, you're communicating at a subconscious level that she already has you. There's no chase, there's no challenge, there's no mystery. Her brain categorizes you as solved and moves on to the next puzzle. You've seen this happen, haven't you? You've watched a girl seem interested, respond to your texts, maybe even go on a date or two, and then suddenly the energy shifts. She gets distant. She takes longer to respond. She's busy more often. You think something went wrong, but nothing went wrong. You just gave her too much certainty too quickly. The psychological principle you need to understand is called intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. When a reward comes at unpredictable intervals, the brain becomes obsessed with seeking it out. When a reward comes every single time, the brain gets bored. Slot machines don't pay out every time you pull the lever. If they did, nobody would play them. They pay out randomly, unpredictably, just often enough to keep you hooked. That's what you need to become. Unpredictable. Not in a manipulative way, not in a game-playing way, but in a genuine, I have a full life and you're not the center of it way. Imagine this scenario. You've been texting back and forth with her for a few days. Good conversation, some flirting, clear mutual interest. Then one day you just don't respond. Not because you're playing a game, not because you're counting hours, but because you genuinely got busy, went out with friends, focused on your work, lived your life. She sends a message, you don't see it for 4 hours. When you finally respond, it's brief and warm, but not overly apologetic. Been slammed today. How are you? What just happened in her mind? She noticed the gap. She wondered why you didn't respond. She checked her phone multiple times to see if you'd replied. She started questioning things. Is he losing interest? Is he talking to someone else? Did I say something wrong? And then when you do respond, there's a little hit of relief, a little hit of dopamine. She feels good that you responded, but the uncertainty remains because you didn't over-explain, didn't apologize profusely, didn't reassure her that she's the most important thing in your world. You've just created a microcycle of tension and release. And if you repeat this pattern naturally, not as a calculated tactic, but as a genuine reflection of having a full, busy, purposeful life, her brain starts to crave that cycle. She starts to think about you more. She starts to wonder what you're doing when you're not texting her. She starts to feel like she needs to work a little harder to keep your attention. This is the beginning of obsession. But it only works if it's authentic. If you're sitting at home staring at your phone, forcing yourself not to respond because you're following a strategy, she'll sense it. Women are incredibly intuitive about this kind of thing. They can feel when a man's absence is strategic versus when it's genuine. The energy is different. The vibe is different. So the real work isn't about learning texting tactics or timing strategies. The real work is about actually building a life that makes you naturally less available. When you have genuine purpose, when you're working on meaningful goals, building something, improving yourself, surrounded by friends and activities and challenges, you become naturally scarce. You're not playing hard to get, you are hard to get. And that authentic scarcity is magnetic in a way that manufactured scarcity never will be. She can feel the difference between a man who's pretending to be busy and a man who's actually building something. One feels like a game, the other feels like a challenge worth pursuing.
But scarcity alone isn't enough. You need to understand the second component, emotional impact. When you are present with her, when you do interact, those moments need to be so vivid, so charged, so different from every other interaction she has that they burn into her memory. Most men are forgettable because they're trying so hard not to make mistakes. They're careful, they're polite, they're safe. They agree with everything she says, they laugh at all her jokes, they never challenge her, never push back, never create any friction. And friction is exactly what creates heat. Think about the guys she actually remembers from her past. They're not the ones who were nicest to her, they're not the ones who validated her the most. They're the ones who made her feel something intense, whether it was excitement, frustration, anger, passion, or confusion. Strong emotions create strong memories. Weak emotions create no memories at all. When you're walking on eggshells around her, being agreeable and pleasant and non-threatening, you're creating weak emotional experiences. She'll enjoy talking to you in the moment, she'll think you're nice, and then she'll forget about you 5 minutes after the conversation ends because nothing about the interaction stood out. Here's what creating emotional impact actually looks like. She says something you disagree with. Instead of nodding along, you call it out. That's actually kind of insane. You really think that? But you do it with a smirk, with playfulness, with confidence. You're not being mean, you're not being disrespectful, you're being real. You're showing her that you have your own opinions and you're not going to hide them to make her comfortable. What happens in that moment? Tension. Her heart rate increases slightly. She feels slightly defensive, slightly challenged, slightly alive. And now she's engaged. Now she's thinking. Now the interaction has texture and depth instead of being another smooth, forgettable conversation. Or she tells you about something she's proud of, a promotion, an accomplishment, something she did. Most guys immediately shower her with validation. Oh my God, that's amazing. You're so smart. I'm so proud of you. You know what you should do instead? Acknowledge it genuinely, but don't inflate it. That's solid. What's next? This does something powerful. First, it shows you're not desperate to validate her for approval. Second, it communicates that you expect excellence from her, that one accomplishment isn't the peak of her potential. Third, it creates a subtle challenge. She now wants to prove to you that she's even more capable than you realize. You flip the script. Instead of you trying to impress her, she's now unconsciously trying to impress you. Let me paint you another picture. You're on a date with her. The conversation is flowing. Everything is going well. At some point, there's a natural lull. Most men panic during these moments. They rush to fill the silence with another question, another story, another attempt to keep things smooth. But you don't. You just sit there. You make eye contact. You smile slightly. You let the silence hang. She might feel awkward for a second. She might try to fill it herself. Or maybe you both just exist in that moment without needing to perform. Either way, you've created a pocket of intensity. You've shown her that you're comfortable with discomfort, that you don't need constant stimulation, that you're secure enough to just be. That confidence is intoxicating. And she'll think about that moment later. She'll replay it. She'll wonder what you were thinking during that silence. This is the art of creating memorable moments. It's not about being loud or showy or doing grand gestures. It's about being present, being authentic, and being willing to create emotional variance. When every moment with you feels exactly the same, pleasant, safe, predictable, there's nothing for her brain to latch onto. But when your presence creates peaks and valleys of emotion, when she feels challenged one moment and comfortable the next, when you make her laugh and then make her think, when you create tension and then release it, you become impossible to forget. She starts comparing other men to you. He's nice, but he's not as interesting as... And just like that, you're the benchmark in her mind.
Now we need to talk about the element that ties everything together. Unpredictability within consistency. This sounds contradictory, but it's the secret that separates the men women obsess over from the men that just casually date. You need to be consistent in your core character, your values, your confidence, your standards, but unpredictable in your availability and behavior. Let me explain what this means in practice. Consistency in character means she knows what you stand for. She knows you don't compromise on certain things. She knows you have boundaries. She knows you're not going to suddenly become a different person to please her. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. If you have a principle, you stick to it. This creates a foundation of trust and respect. She knows who you are at your core. But here's where the unpredictability comes in. She never quite knows what version of you she's going to get or when she's going to see you. Sometimes you're warm and affectionate. Sometimes you're distant and focused on your own world. Sometimes you initiate plans. Sometimes you disappear for days because you're handling your business. She can't predict your patterns. She can't figure out the formula. This keeps her brain in that state of uncertainty we talked about earlier. She knows you're solid, you're not flaky or unreliable in a negative way, but she doesn't know when the next interaction will happen or what form it will take. Will you text her tonight? Will it be 3 days? Will you ask her out? Will you be busy this weekend? She doesn't know. And not knowing keeps you at the front of her mind. Every time her phone buzzes, there's a small part of her brain wondering if it's you. Every time she's making plans, she's wondering if you might reach out. You've become a variable she's constantly calculating around. Compare this to the guy who texts her every single morning at 8, who always asks about her day at 5, who always tries to make plans for Friday night. She knows his pattern. She knows exactly when to expect him and what he's going to say. Her brain doesn't need to think about him because he's completely predictable. He's furniture. He's wallpaper. He's just there. But you're a question mark. You're possibility. You're the unknown. And the human brain is obsessed with the unknown. Here's something most men don't understand about female psychology. Women are attracted to men who have options. Not because they want to share you or compete for you necessarily, but because a man with options behaves differently than a man without them. A man with options doesn't cling. He doesn't need validation from one specific woman. He doesn't panic when she pulls back. He doesn't structure his entire schedule around her availability. He moves through the world with a relaxed confidence that comes from knowing that if this doesn't work out, he'll be fine. And that energy is intoxicating to women because it's so rare. When she senses that you have a full life, that there are other women interested in you, that you have friends who value your time, that you have goals that consume your energy, something primal activates in her brain. She doesn't want to be just another option. She wants to be the choice. She wants to be the one you prioritize. But she only wants this if she has to earn it. If you give her priority status immediately, without her having done anything to deserve it, it has no value. It's like handing someone a trophy for showing up. It means nothing. But if she has to compete for your attention, if she has to prove she's different from other women you could be spending time with, if she has to work to keep you interested, suddenly being your priority becomes the most valuable thing in the world to her. This is why the men women obsess over are often the ones who seem least affected by them. The guy who's a little too focused on his business. The guy who cancels plans because something important came up. The guy who doesn't rearrange his entire life to accommodate her schedule. She's used to men bending over backward for her. She's used to being the prize. But with you, the dynamic is different. You like her, you enjoy her company, but you're not structuring your world around her. And that flips a switch in her brain. Suddenly, she's the one thinking, how do I get more of his time? How do I become more important to him? What do I need to do to keep his interest? The obsession isn't something you create through tactics. It's something that naturally develops when she realizes you're the kind of man who can't be easily captured.
Let's address the part that makes most men uncomfortable. You need to be willing to lose her. This is the ultimate paradox. The moment you need her to stay is the moment she starts to leave. The moment you're completely fine with her walking away is the moment she can't stop thinking about you. Your attachment to the outcome is the poison that kills attraction. Your indifference to the outcome is the magnet that creates obsession. Think about it from her perspective. She's testing you constantly, whether she realizes it or not. She goes cold for a few days to see if you'll panic and start flooding her phone with messages. She mentions another guy to see if you'll get jealous and insecure. She cancels plans to see if you'll get angry or needy or desperate to reschedule. These aren't conscious manipulations. They're subconscious evaluations. Her brain is trying to answer one question. Is this man secure enough to be a challenge, or is he just another guy who will crumble the moment I pull back? When you chase her during these tests, when you try harder when she pulls away, when you show anxiety about losing her, you fail the test. You've proven that you need her more than she needs you. And the moment that power dynamic is established, the obsession dies. She might still date you out of convenience or boredom, but she won't think about you constantly. She won't crave you. She won't feel that magnetic pull, because you've shown her that she's already won. There's no challenge left. There's no uncertainty. There's just a guy who's desperately trying to hold on to her. But when you pass these tests, when she goes cold and you just keep living your life, when she mentions another guy and you genuinely don't care, when she cancels plans and you say no problem and make other plans without trying to reschedule immediately, something shifts. She realizes her usual tactics don't work on you. She realizes you're not sitting around waiting for her. She realizes that if she's not adding value to your life, you're perfectly content without her. And that realization creates panic in her brain. Not the kind of panic that makes her run away, but the kind that makes her chase. Here's what this looks like in a real scenario. You've been seeing her for a few weeks, things have been good, then suddenly she starts taking hours to respond to texts.
Her messages get shorter. She's busy when you suggest hanging out. Most guys would spiral at this point. They'd double text. They'd ask if everything's okay. They'd try to have the talk about where things are going. They'd show their cards completely. But you don't do any of that. You just match her energy. She takes 6 hours to respond. You take 8. She's busy this weekend? Cool. You've got other things to do anyway. You don't punish her. You don't play games. You just genuinely invest your time and energy elsewhere. What happens next? She notices. She notices that you didn't chase. She notices that you didn't seem bothered. She notices that your life continued without skipping a beat. And now, her brain starts working overtime. Wait, why isn't he trying harder? Did I push him away? Is he seeing someone else? Did I misread how interested he was? The tables have turned completely. Now she's the one analyzing the situation. She's the one feeling uncertain. She's the one thinking about you constantly, trying to figure out what happened and how to get your attention back. This is the power of being genuinely outcome independent. Not fake outcome independent where you're secretly obsessing and forcing yourself not to text her, but truly not giving a damn whether she stays or goes because you know your value and you know there are other options. When you live from that place, everything changes. You stop walking on eggshells. You stop trying to say the perfect thing. You stop worrying about whether she likes you enough. You just show up as yourself, take her or leave her, and let the chips fall where they may. And ironically, that's when she becomes obsessed. Because you're the first guy in a long time, maybe ever, who isn't trying to capture her. You're the first guy who isn't adjusting himself to fit her expectations. You're the first guy who seems perfectly fine without her. And that drives her crazy. Not in an angry way, in a, I need to understand this person way. In a, I need to figure out how to keep him interested way. In a, why can't I stop thinking about him way. You've become the puzzle her brain is desperate to solve. You've become the slot machine that pays out just often enough to keep her pulling the lever. You've become the cliffhanger she can't stop thinking about.
There's one more layer to this that most men completely miss. You need to make her feel seen in a way that nobody else does, but only in carefully measured doses. This is the difference between being distant and cold versus being selectively intimate. A man who's just aloof and unavailable all the time isn't mysterious, he's just boring and emotionally unavailable. But a man who's mostly focused on his own world, but occasionally drops his guard and connects with her on a deep level, that's addictive. Here's how this works. 90% of the time, you're in your frame. You're busy with your life, you're focused on your goals, you're not overly available or emotional. But then there's that 10%, those rare moments when you actually let her in. Maybe you're together and she says something that reveals a vulnerability or an insecurity. Most guys would rush to validate her or give generic reassurance. You do something different. You look at her for a second, really look at her, and you say something that shows you actually understand what she's feeling beneath the surface. Not some surface level, you're perfect nonsense. Something real. Something that shows you see her as a complete person, not just as a woman you're trying to sleep with. Let me give you a concrete example. She's telling you about her career, and she mentions how exhausting it is to always have to prove herself in a male-dominated field. She's clearly frustrated, but trying to play it cool. Most guys would either minimize it or go overboard with feminist support. You pause, you think about it, then you say something like, "That sounds lonely." Like you can never just relax and be yourself because you're always performing competence. She stops. She looks at you differently. Because you didn't just hear her words, you understood the deeper emotion she wasn't directly expressing. You saw the loneliness beneath the frustration. You validated something she didn't even fully articulate. In that moment, you've created a connection that goes deeper than anything she's experienced with other guys. You've shown her that you're capable of emotional depth and understanding. But here's the critical part. You don't stay in that space. You don't turn the whole conversation into a therapy session. You don't try to solve all her problems or become her emotional support system. You just acknowledge what you saw, let the moment land, and then you shift back to your normal energy. Maybe you make a joke. Maybe you change the subject. Maybe you just go back to whatever you were doing. The moment passes, but the impact remains. This is what creates the addiction. She got a glimpse of deep connection with you, the kind of connection she craves, but it was fleeting. She can't access it whenever she wants. She can't predict when it will happen again. So now every time she's with you, there's a part of her brain hoping for another one of those moments. She's chasing that feeling of being truly seen and understood, but she can't manufacture it. It only happens when it happens, on your terms, when you choose to let her in. This intermittent deep connection combined with your usual self-focused energy creates a psychological hook that's almost impossible to break. The mistake most men make is they're either emotionally unavailable all the time, which makes women feel uncared for and eventually give up, or they're emotionally available all the time, which makes them the therapist friend instead of the romantic interest. You need to be both, but never at the same time. You need to show her you're capable of depth, but that your depth is rare and valuable. She needs to earn those moments. She needs to prove she deserves that level of vulnerability from you. And when she does get it, it needs to be so powerful that it stays with her for days. This is also why physical intimacy, when it happens, needs to be intense and present. Not performative, not mechanical, but fully present. When you're with her physically, you're not thinking about what you look like or whether you're doing everything right. You're completely immersed in the experience, in her, in the connection. You make her feel desired in a way that's primal and real. And then after, you don't immediately become clingy or start talking about feelings or ask where this is going. You just exist in the moment, and then you return to your life. She's left with an experience that was so intense and so connected, but also clearly defined. Not the beginning of you getting attached and needy, just a powerful moment that stands on its own. This pattern of intermittent deep connection, punctuated by your normal self-focused energy, is what keeps you in her mind, constantly. She's always wondering when the next moment of depth will come. She's always trying to earn more access to that side of you. She's always replaying the moments when you did let her in, analyzing them, savoring them, wanting more. You've shown her that connecting with you on that level is possible, but rare. And rarity creates value. Scarcity creates obsession.
Now let's talk about what happens when she actually starts chasing you, because this is where most men accidentally destroy everything they've built. She starts initiating more. She's texting first. She's making herself available. She's showing clear interest in investment. And what do most guys do the moment they sense they've won? They relax. They get comfortable. They start acting like the relationship is secured. They become more available, more predictable, more eager. They think the hard part is over. They don't realize they just killed the very dynamic that made her obsessed in the first place. The truth is that attraction isn't something you create once and then coast on. It's something you maintain through your behavior and your energy. The moment you stop being the man she had to chase is the moment she stops chasing. This doesn't mean you play games forever. It doesn't mean you can never relax into a relationship. But it does mean that even when things get serious, even when you're committed, you never abandon the core principles that made her attracted to you in the first place. You still have your own life. You still have your own goals. You still maintain your standards and boundaries. You're still willing to walk away if the relationship becomes toxic or one-sided. The men women stay obsessed with for years are the ones who never fully become predictable. Even in a long-term relationship, there's still an element of mystery. There's still a sense that he's choosing to be with her, not that he needs to be with her. There's still moments where she has to earn his attention and affection. This isn't about being distant or withholding love. It's about maintaining your identity and your purpose outside of the relationship. It's about never making her your entire world, because the moment you do, she stops seeing you as a man and starts seeing you as an accessory to her life. Think about the most attractive couples you know. The ones where both people seem genuinely obsessed with each other, even after years together. What do they have in common? Both people still have their own lives. Both people still maintain independence. Both people still surprise each other. Both people still feel like they're choosing each other every day, not like they're trapped by commitment or routine. The obsession continues because the fundamental dynamic never changes.
They're still two whole people who choose to be together, not two half people who need each other to feel complete. So here's what you need to understand about making a girl think about you constantly. It's not a trick. It's not a tactic. It's a fundamental shift in how you move through the world. You become a man who's genuinely focused on building something meaningful with his life. You become a man who has options and standards and boundaries. You become a man who's willing to walk away from anything that doesn't serve him, including her. You become a man who's capable of deep connection, but doesn't give it away freely to everyone. You become a man who's consistent in character, but unpredictable in behavior. You become a man who's present when he's there, but doesn't apologize for being absent when he's not. When you embody these qualities authentically, not as a performance, but as a genuine reflection of who you are, women don't just think about you, they obsess over you. They compare every other man to you. They wait for your texts. They make themselves available when you're available. They work to keep your interest. They chase you even when they've caught you. Because you're not like the other men they've met. You're not desperate for validation. You're not trying to lock them down. You're not making them your entire world. You're just a man who knows his value, who's building something meaningful, and who's open to having her along for the ride if she proves she's worth it. And the beautiful irony is that when you stop trying to make her think about you, when you genuinely stop caring whether she does or not, because you're too busy building your life and becoming the man you're meant to be, that's when she can't stop thinking about you. That's when you become the person she talks about to her friends. That's when you become the standard by which she measures everyone else. That's when you become unforgettable. You don't make her obsessed by chasing her. You make her obsessed by being the kind of man who doesn't need to chase anyone.